Hi, hello everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us for day 8, coding bootcamp from zero to hero, where we'll be taking up programming from front end and back end, and discuss a different way to work together within a distributed team. We also be looking at various projects that each of you have chosen. So for day 1, day 2, day 3, if you are still here till day 8, type 100%. 100%. If you have started with us from day 1 till day 8, type 100%. 100%. And if you are joining us for today, you are still good to go. We will find a way to ensure that you run along with us. We might provide some way to support to ensure that you get on track. So 100% if you have started from day 1 with us till now, write 100%. If you are just joining, write 25%. If you have been with us from day 1, write 100%. And you are still here. And you can write 25% if you are just joining us. Let's see where we are. Let's see where we are. 100%. Thank you so much. So for today, what we'll be looking at briefly, we'll be looking at we will do general review from day 1. We'll do general review from day 1 because next week, which starts from tomorrow, we're going to have a class tomorrow. I want us to run with the speed of light tomorrow. That said, we're going to go through some of the things we discussed to see where we are. We are going to review our assignments, and we can end everything within an hour. So tomorrow, be prepared that we may have about 2 to 3 hours, class. If you have the time, we'll spend more than 1 hour tomorrow. Okay. That said, let's get down to business. So, like I said, the class is code bootcamp. The idea is to have us meet for 21 days, not necessarily every day of the week, but then each day will count towards the 21 day, and at the end of the 21 day, you should be ready, baked to start taking projects or applying for jobs. I'm also going to cover some of the tips that you can use to get a job, whether on premise or remotely, and some of the advanced concepts that you will probably likely need to start doing. So that is that. Okay, so before I go into the assignment, let's run through what we have. First, like I said, this is a total package. There are some things that, let me see, I've included REST, testing, getting job, time management. I think I did that. Business fit, time management, in working collaboration. There is something here called Scrum session. Let me quickly mention that. Scrum. The idea of the Scrum is is like working in the team, in the group, whereby you take up a project and discuss that project. Look at various issues that you have for the project, what percentage of completion you have, and is there anything that is bottleneck, is there anything that is stopping you from moving forward. So those are the things we look at in a Scrum session. And in some places they call it we have like three sessions. The 4 sessions is what we call we call it stand up, which is a daily review of tasks. You understand? Stand up is and then we have a sprint. In sprint you do what we call sprint planning, whereby we plan for a project that we are building. We may break that project into 4 phases, and for each of the phases you may say that, okay, maybe one phase will take 3 months. Now within that 3 months we want to break the 3-month project or module into subtasks, and those subtasks are split into a sprint. Most times a sprint is a 2-week event that we work. So we say that within these 2 weeks, this is what we want to achieve. Within these 2 weeks, this is what we want to achieve. So I will start from there. The Scrum, we have a sprint, and then at the end of the sprint, you have a sprint review. Sprint review. The sprint review is to allow us to review what has been done in the last 2 weeks and see them, where we are and what progress we have made and things like that. So don't forget Scrum. Most times we have someone who is leading the Scrum. That person is called a Scrum Master. In the traditional team, that Scrum Master could be the head of the development technical unit, but oftentimes a business person is the person who aligns with the business team and the technical team. So the person is in between. He takes this, he or she has meetings with the business team, and then come back to meet with the technical team and discuss what the business team wants. And then the tech lead within the team or an architect will start breaking down to simpler tasks or components. So that's what we call Scrum. So, and in this session, like I said, we have stand up. Stand up is a daily review of each member of a team. Each member of a team, whether you are a programmer, you are a back end, you are front end, you are business person within the team, or you are a UI person. So all of you that make up the team, we have to give an update of what you are doing. So that's what stand up means. And then the sprint is the meetings and work within a 2-week period. And then at the end of every 2-week period, we have this, sprint review. So in the beginning of each sprint, we have what we call sprint planning, which is when we break down tasks. This is when we break down, different, tasks. If you get what I'm saying so far, just say yes. If you don't get it, say no. Before I move on. If you understand everything I talk about Scrum, say yes. If you don't understand, say no. Write no if you don't understand or you have a question. Write yes if you understand, so we can move on. Write yes if you understand. Write no if you don't understand. Okay, so good. Having said that, we will go back for the sake of those that have joined us recently. I'm going to start our review from day 1. In our day one, we discuss what? We discuss various tools that you need to work. So let's go to various tools. Here, this is just like a syllabus of what we are going to cover. The syllabus of what we are going to cover. It starts from build tools, which are the software that you need to install on your system. You need to install Visual Studio Code. You need to install Java 8 and above. You need to install Node.js. You need to install Maven or Gradle. You need to install JIT. If you don't have all those things installed, please get them installed tomorrow. Start working on installing them. If you run into a problem, you can post it in the group chat. Someone will help you. If you can't get help from someone, I will attend to you. Kindly install all those stuffs. The Visual Studio Code is a software where we type in our program, and then the Java is the programming language that we are starting with. Whether you want to do enterprise project or you want to do an embedded project, you need to have this software, installed on your system. Please, if you haven't done so, start working on that, and we can support you. The languages we'll be covering in this class, we talk about Java, we talk about Node.js, JavaScript, TypeScript, HTML, CSS. The Java and Node.js will be used to write backend projects. Our backend is actually the program that runs that is not seen. That's one that runs that is not seen. For example, your TV, you have a display of your TV, but what powers the TV that does all the display are not seen. That's why they are in the backend. That's why they are called backend software. So we have a Java. Java runs in more than 2 billion devices. More than 2 billion devices across the world run on Java. You can think of your phone, your laptop, your TV, your remote control systems. All of them are powered with Java. So you need to have Java installed on your system and see how all these things work. Then we have Node.js, which is a JavaScript way of writing backend. Then we'll be dealing with JavaScript, which is the number one programming language for web development. Number one programming language for front-end development is JavaScript. JavaScript is the father of all other programming languages. They are all built on it for front-end. Whether it's Angular, whether it's React, whether it's jQuery, they are all built on JavaScript for web development. We also have TypeScript. TypeScript is to ensure that we are guided. That's why it's called typed. It's JavaScript, but then JavaScript that has classes like Java. Then we have HTML. HTML is used to author web pages. While JavaScript being dynamism to front end, HTML, CSS. HTML is the language for writing web pages, designing web pages, and the CSS, which is the style sheet, allow you to put color, font, redesign whatever thing you see on the web. Are designed by all of them come down to CSS. Then number 3 on our syllabus, we also discuss projects. The projects are the kind of project we would like to do as we continue with the class. By the end of day 21, we want you to have matured with your projects. So we have somebody who has talked about car hailing application like Uber. We have a retail and other application, to order cake, and then we'll be looking at collaboration. I think if you have not stated the kind of projects you'd like to work on, I think you should just type it now. Type what kind of projects you would like to work on. What kind of project, what kind of thing would you like to design with coding? Let's have that. If you don't have, I can give you one. I learned that someone that is interested in embedded programming, so I can give you a project if you want. So let's have that. Okay, so if it's not here, you can just say, if you are still thinking of it, think of it. But I can give you something like fingerprint authentication. I can give that to Chala. But then think of what you want to build, and you can post it in the group chat. We review that and can add it to the list of what we are working on. So having said that, we move to theory. Under theory, the collaboration here is how we work together with your team. You are going to work with different teams. So how do you work? How do you excel in the team? And they don't look at it that you are just doing your own work. So, and the theory will be covering what we call variables, data types, collection, functions, classes, design principles, and architecture. Then development, which is building. We'll be looking at coding proper, testing, code review, deployment. The code review is a way of just reviewing what you have done by your peers. Your peer or your teammate will review what you have done, and then you can create a request for approval. Okay, so we move to back end, and from back end we move to front end. From front end, then we talk about integration, API, what is REST, what is XML, what is SOAP, what is TCP, IP. Then we look at how we deploy those program into containers, into cloud. Maybe I will now add embedded devices to it too, into embedded devices. All right, and then we'll do unit testing. We'll test our various projects. There are different types of tests. We have unit test, we have integration test, we have end-to-end E2E, we have smoke test, we have stress, performance. The idea is that at the end of the day, you can measure in any area. You can measure in testing, you can measure in embedded development, you can measure in, not even writing programming at all, but coordinating, be a project manager for different programming projects or software projects. So after that, we will talk about interview questions, algorithm, architecture, business fit, getting remote job opportunities, working remotely, time management, Scrum, which I talk about today, and collaboration. So that is on that. And then we started by looking at variables. We started by looking at variables. That in computing or in writing a program, everything that runs on the machine. The machine has what we call memory. It also has what we call registers, where there are memory slots and things like that. And then it has a display unit. So you have the processing unit, the central processing unit, and then you have the display unit. The processing unit is where computation happens. However, for all this computation to happen or for anything to be displayed and things like that, data or whatever value that you want to, write out or send to a display or send to what we call an output channel, has to be collected, which is what is called input. Input is the process of collecting, data or whatever thing that needs to be processed. Output is sending already processed data. Processed data could be simply like displaying a name. You could also be displaying just like your calculator, calculated value of something. And then we say that we have variables that are like, we have what we call temporary storage and permanent storage. Your temporary storage are memories. They are stored in what we call the random access memory. The random access memory are short-lived memory. They are memory that are just kept for the life of the computer when the computer is powered on. When the computer is put off, the memory gets wiped off. Just like a liar who could not remember what he said yesterday. That's what RAM is like. Random access memory, that is where data are stored temporarily. And then we have a permanent storage, which is your hard disk. Now, when you declare a variable, excuse me, when you declare a variable, you are basically storing that variable in RAM, in the short memory, and then when you save it, then it is saved on probably the hard disk or so. When we get to output stream and file system, we'll deal with that. So there are different type of data that can be stored in that memory, and these are called variables. They have different data type. We have integer. We have what we call float that carries a decimal point. We have double long character string. You can go through some of those videos so that we also don't drag down too much those that have started earlier on. So we have a char which represents a single character. We have an alphabet, and then we have a string which like a set of characters. A set of characters, and then we also have string which could be an array of characters and things like that. So this file, you need to have access to them and then have your JIT installed so that you can access them. So we look at a single print method here. We talk about function. After the variables, we talk about functions, which is a block of code that perform a particular task. A block of code that performs a particular task. This block of code could just be one line of code, and it could be 20 lines of code, 10 lines of code, and things like that. But the whole code perform a single task, and most times the task is the name of the function. So here we have echo. We have echo. This is how to declare a function. The name of the function is called echo, and then this function takes a variable text, and then anything that begins with call brace, it means that is the beginning of that function, and this function just simply prints out whatever text that is provided as input or arguments. And then if a function needs to return a particular value, you need to also indicate the type of value that is returning, whether it's a string or an object, or so. Here, if it's not returning anything, the method must be void. Public here, we talk about what we call access modifier, which define the level of access to a method that we have. The the level of access to a method that we have. And I said that these access modifiers could be private, they could be public, and they could be protected. When it is private, it means that that method cannot be accessed outside the class. Cannot be accessed outside the class. I hope the screen is better. I hope the screen is better now. Okay. So when it is private, cannot be accessed outside the class. When it is public, can be accessed outside the class. When it is protected, it means that only packages, that is group of files that share the same file, can be accessed. Okay, so and then every file belongs to what we call a class. Every file is a class, and a class is a file that contains a source code, that contains the program or the code to implement a particular task. So this task can have subtasks. Those subtasks can be split into functions, but the class is the generic class. Let me put it this way: we have a file. We have a file called physical file, and then we have a file called logical file. A physical file is the file you save your content in, but the logical file is a class name where you embed or you put the code that you are writing. Okay, so from there we move to discuss main. Not every class has a main method. However, for a class to be standalone, for a class to be able to be executed, for a class to be executable, it must have a method called main. And this main must have this signature, public static main. If it does not start with public, it will never be executed. If it doesn't have static, it will never be executed. So it has to carry this signature, public static void main string adds. So, and then here what we attempt to do is to just declare some variables. Integer tires equals to 8. We are just showing these are variables now. Name of school, we are talking about naming a variable. A variable can start with one word, can have one word, and can have more than one word. When it's more than one word, the first word is in lowercase, and the first letter of the other words are in uppercase, then concatenate together, concatenated. That is why we have this name of school. Then the system out of print line is a way of printing to the console. That is, the console is a black screen. When we get there, I will explain all those better. Now, when you have a class, there is no way you can access the functions of that class or the variables in that class without making a copy of that class. Which means that to make a copy, you create what we call an instance of that class. When you create instance of that class, you assign it to a variable. So it becomes a temporary storage, and then with that, you can access whatever function that is in that class. So if you have a class called students now, and it has to be executable, then it must have a main method with this signature. And from there, it must also have we declare variables, which is the class name, assign it to a variable name, which is almost like the name of the class. Then the new keyword here, new means to instantiate, to create a new copy. Without instantiating a class, it cannot be executed. So that is number one. Number two is that there are also some special classes that will not need to be executed. Those ones are called utility classes. When we get there, we can explain more on what utility classes do and why they are not executable, how they can be called without having a main method. So you need to have the class name, create a variable, and then add a new keyword to the class. That creates a new instance, and then from the instance you can call any method in that class. That is what will take us to our assignments so far. So what I'm going to do is that let's quickly look at collections. We have talked about variables. We review variables. We review functions. We review classes, main method. Then let's quickly look at variables. Collections. Collections are what the name is: a group of data, a group of item, a group of data, a group of item. So a group of item, that is what collection means. Now we have different type of collections. We have arrays, we have array list, we have map, we have set, and then which one did I not mention? We have set, we have map, we have arrays, we have array list. Those are the common data type. We have linked list. You can begin to look at all those ones: linked list, hash map, queue. Those are different type of collections that we have, but we are going to deal with the recurring ones. So we deal with the recurring ones, and so I will start with arrays. Arrays are what we call arrays are a fixed length data grouping. Arrays are fixed length data grouping. Fixed length. Why? Because when you define an array, you must specify the length of that array. And the array are simply defined by adding a rectangular bracket to the data type of your variable. Add rectangular bracket, this rectangular bracket, add it to the data type of your variable. That makes an array. So you can have an array of string, you can have an array of integer, you can have array of double, you can have array of many other things, array of objects, as long as they are fixed length. So we have this fixed length. So you can, these are the ways of initializing an array. When I say initialize, that is create a new type. Create a new type means initialize. Create a new type or a copy. So we want to create a new type of array called cities. So we say city equals to new string 5. I have told us that the new is to do what? Is to make a new copy, of the data type and assign it to a variable. The rectangular bracket is to show that it's an array, and the 5 inside this array is the length of the string. What this simply says is that there is a collection of 5 cities. There is a collection of 5 cities. There is a group of 5 cities. Let's put it like that. There is a group, and the size of the group is 5. Group of cities. So there is a method here, we call it create array. We also want to use it to define an array. The first one, define array with empty content. The empty content we default to the type of the data. If it is an object, it will be null. If it's an object, the default for object is null. For primitives, it is 0. So for Boolean, it is false. So the default for an object is null. Default for primitives, for example, like integer, it will be 0. Float will be 0.0. Double will be 0.0. Boolean will be false. So those are the default value. So when you initialize a city is of type string, and I say string is an immutable object. String is treated as an object, so the default will be null. Now you can also initialize an array with the actual value that needs to be there by using the call brace or bracket, and put the values that need to be there. It means that everything you see inside this call bracket is the values that inside that array. Next is that I told you that array is 0 indexed. Array is 0 indexed. What does 0 index means? It means that it starts from 0, position 0. It starts from position 0. It starts from position 0. And so if you put anything to the array, you can say if our array is of length 7, then the first position will be 0th position. The next position will be first position. And then the last record will be in the length of the array minus 1. So if the length is 7, then the last item will be the item at 6th position. That is how arrays are placed, the content in the arrays. So if we declare, say, arrays name called Shola, we can try to assess what the defaults are by running this program. If you run this program, you will see that the output there are just what? No. And we can update this by saying prices at 0 is this, prices at 3 is this. And if you want to get the, say, prices at the 5th position, you want to print it out, all you need to do is to do what? Print prices at position 5 or position 4. So those are the arrays. We treated arrays, and then we move to dynamic array. We said that dynamic array are the list or array list or map or hash map where the length does not need to be fixed, or the length is not fixed, unlike array. Here the dynamic arrays, the length are not fixed, so that you can add, as you add content to it, it keeps doubling its size so that it can take more records. Once the content of that array exceed the half of the size, it doubles the size so that it can contain more record. That is why it's called dynamic array. So we have array list, which has a method add. The array list has a method add. I need you to understand this thing very well now, because when we go to the assignments, so you can understand what you are doing with your assignments, array list has a method called add. The add is to put content into the array list or list. It has a remove method. The remove method is to delete any content from that list, provided you give it the index, that is the position. So anything at a particular position can be removed with the remove method. There is the size method, which returns the size of the array, and then there is a get. The get gets the content of the array at any index, that is at any position. Once you pass the position, it fetches you whatever thing that is inside. So array list has these four major methods. Get is to get item at a particular position. Add is to get the content at a particular position. Remove is to delete anything. Size is to get the total size or the length of the array. To add anything, you just call the add method. We declare an array of countries and we call the add method. We call the add method to put everything there, and then we return countries. We add a method called remove. If we have an index and we have a record, this will remove the content at this particular index and then return whatever thing that is left. If you have a main method and we want this class called collections, we want it to be executable, like I said before, it must have this signature called a public static void main. Now, so once you have this, then the first step is to instantiate the class. The name of this class is called collections. So we will define a new variable called collections, all in lowercase, of type collections, and then instantiate it by having a new keyword in front of it. So new collections. Then there is a method in collection class called create arrays. We can call it. And then I also told us how do you go through everything inside the array. You use what we call a for loop, which has for, and then a starting index, and then the logical limits of the index, and then the number of steps to take. X plus x means that increase the step by 1. X here stands for the step, and then x less than country dot size, that is the condition to which the array should stop. Otherwise we might experience an error. Countries dot add, so we can delete anything from the array. Then I said set is also a list, is an array list, a dynamic list. The difference here is that a set holds unique values, that is, it does not allow duplicates. So if you put 100 duplicates, you will only have unique one. Here we have 9, 13, 21, 13, 21, and many 21s. When you print the content out, you only get 3 unique items, which is 9, 13, and 21, because it is a set. Then map is what? Map is a key value pair. Map is a key value pair that holds data storage. Now, the map, I say key value, mean that the key, you will have the key of a particular data type, and then the value is the second type. The value can be anything. It can be an object, it can be a class, it can be a list, it can be an integer, it can be a float, it could be a boolean. That is the data that is being stored, the value. The key is the first part. The key is the first part. That's why it is called key value pair. I think another way to put it so that you understand, I can do this. Say map map key, then value. So here we are saying that the first thing you see is the key. That means the key is what you are going to use to get whatever thing that is stored as value. To demonstrate that, I said, okay, let's look at country and capital. So you want to know what is the capital city of, say, Tokyo. What is capital city of Japan? Because Japan is what you are going to use to look up its city. So Japan becomes the key. The country name becomes the key, and the country capital becomes the value. So we have Nigeria, Abuja, Sweden, Stockholm, and things like that. So, and the map has a method called put. It has another method called get. The put is to put value in the map. The get is to get value from the map. So the put, with the put you have the key and the value. The get, for the get you have just the key. You pass the key and you get the value. Look at so country capitals dot get Japan. Japan is the key because that's the country name that we are using to get the cities. So having said that, we'll wrap it up by going through the assignment, so I can explain again. In the assignment, I asked us to use iterator instead of for loop. I've explained for loop for us. We have used it, but instead of for loop, I wanted you to do a research to see how to make use of iterator. So write an iterator to print student record, right? Then use for loop to print all students. So you can start with this. Use for loop to print all student data in student class. Then add a method to this. So if I'm going to look at it, this is the skeletal stuff I asked you to do. Let's quickly go and do this. You will have a, let's say you have a class, you have students dot java. So let's say class, public class, students. In this class, we instantiate students. So we have a map, right? String list students. Then put appropriate data type. This list is of type string, and then we say students. Then you instantiate that. Now have a method called public void add. This add should take, say, string first name, string last name, like that. Then inside this, create a new list, which is the of type string. Say, call it record equals to new array list, right? New array list. Then okay, let's say this one, we have student number, we have number. So we have number, first name, last name, like that. I gave you everything. Okay. Let's see. And let me know where you're able to see it well. If you're able to see what I'm doing now, you can type scene. Type scene if you are seeing it well now. Type scene if you're able to see the screen now. right. Okay, so I ask us to create a method called add, and from here you can now say record dot add first name. That means first name is in the position 1. Record dot add last name. Then you continue and add the rest. After that, you now need to put this record into the map and say student dot put the number comma the record, so that you can keep adding multiple students to that. So this is what we have. So this is what our assignment is about. Then I ask you to add another method. This method should get a student record, which means given a student's name, given a student number, fetch student record. Have a method called get, student.get, and this method should have string number. So it should be public. But what will be the data type? What will be the returning data type? What will be the data type? What will be the data type of this get? Student record is what? What's the data type for student record? The one we have done with what we have done so far? No. Look at the add method. What is the data type of students record? No. Let me show you us again. I'll scroll down a little. Look at our add method. Just look at our add method. Look at our add method. The class has student records, which is a map. But each student has a record, and the record is what? Is an array, a list of string. Look at it. Look at this line. Because all the student details, the details are actually okay. The number is a string, first name is a string, last name is they are all that. But the record is a collection of all those student properties details. So the student details is the student record, and this record is what? It's a list of string. This record is a list of string. So which means if I ask you to get the student record, what our method should return is what? It should return a list of string. So if you go to your get method should look like this: public list of string, list, public list, get string. Get. That's the method. And then in our collection, in our database or map, it is a what? The map is, the key is the number, which is a string, and then the data is the list. So you simply say list. Simply writing list string record equals to students.get, and you pass the number to it, the student number. That give you the student record, and then you can return this, and then you can return record. And then you can return record. You can return record. Then I ask us to add another method to print a student detail. Now, what is the student detail here? What is the student detail here based on our task? Okay, what is not clear? Now, the get, I say get a student record. To get a student record, all students are stored in a map called students. This is students, and this map hold a key. I'm not calling the same get. I'm calling a student. Students is a map. Student is a map. Do you get it? And it has a method called get. That's why it took us through collections first before I came here. This student is a map, and the map has a get method. Now, but our class is called students, so don't confuse the two. So the class, I asked you to add the get method to the class. To not confuse you, let's say get student now. Let's say the method is called get student. If the method is called get student, of which I don't want you to use get student, let's assume that the method is called get student. Now, the get student is to get a student given a student number. And here, yes, a map has an inbuilt method called get, just like it has put. We have put, we have get. The put is to put something into the map, and the get is to fetch something from the map. Now we want to fetch something from the map we already have. So we have students.get, and you pass the the key to it, and the key is the student number. So then you do what? When you get, it's going to give you the value in the map. What is the value in the map? If you go to the beginning where we define the student is a map having key of string and the list. List as the what? As the list of string as the value. So if you come here and you get a student record, it should return you a list of string, which makes the student detail. And lastly, I ask you to add a print method. Add a print method. So have a method called print. So ask us to put a method called print, right? And what does the print? Yes, not separately. We create each student record separately by calling this method. Each time you call add, you are creating a new student record. Each time you call add, a separate student record is created, and then that record will now be added to the global student data, which is the map. All right. So if we go back to print now we have a method that creates a student record and put it in the student register. Then we have a method get, which given a student name can also get the student detail. Then I also ask us to add another method called print. The print is to print the student details. So given a student detail, what is the student detail here? What is the student detail? Please type it. What is the student details here? Yeah, great. The student detail here is the record. So when I say write a method to print student record or student detail, so we have print, and the argument here should be what? The student records. So it will be, our record here is a list of string. So we have this. So we have this. So it's important we get this thing so that we can go and finish our assignment. And then when we get similar questions, yeah, so all those ones, first name, last name, course, and CGPA, you are going to call the add method on that list to add them. And that's why I put dot. So you add them. So you see that in your list, the first item is the first name followed by last name, and then but the student record is the list. The student record is the list, and the list contains the first name, last name, course, CGPA. So we have the record, and this print is not to return any value. So because it's not returning any value, so we put void. So we can say public void print. And then you want to print now. So all you need to now do is that, okay, string first name. In the record, where is first name located? In the record, at what index is the first name located? For the record, at what index? Yeah, okay, so we have that. So if you arrange it, yes, the first index is 0, array is 0 index, so it will be index 0, so it will be record dot get 0. It's as simple as that. That's first name, second name string, and last name will be what? Record at the second position, second dot get 1, because array is 0 index. I explained all that. So you go like that for the rest. And after you have gotten those details, then you can print them out. You can now say system. You can now say system.out.println. Print line, first name, say first name, space, then plus first name. Then you do the same thing for others. It's as simple as that. Okay, if you rearrange yours, no, matric number, the student number should not be in the list. The student number is the key which you put in the map. So the first thing that should be in the list, which is student detail, should be the first name. The number should not be in the list. So that will be that for today. So go over your assignments again, read through and finish your assignment. We'll have a longer time tomorrow. So if there's anything unclear, you can let me know now. We have 1 minute to close for today. We have 1 minute to close now. Are there any other questions? What are you hard coding? Okay, you can. All right, let me add a main method. Just add a main method if you want to test a public static void main, and then string add string args. So we have you have this one. So after you have added in the main method, then you can instantiate your class students equals to new students. new student, so you instantiate the class. It's not actually hard coding, it's testing. So you have a new student now. So here, let's have some student record. So you have student dot add. You call the add method. So the first name, say Baba, and then last name, say Festi, and then what else? What follows? Course, I will say engineering or computer science, and then what else? We have CGPA, say 4.75. That's a student record. That's the second. So you have a student, and then you have a student variable name, and then you have a new keyword, and then you have instantiate that class students. Then after that, you can now begin to access the method of the class. So let's say we want to create 3 students now. All we need to do is to just call add method 3 times. Call add method 3 times. So maybe this one, Shegun Barbara, and then say this one is computer science. And then this one is maybe it's 5.0. Okay, so you keep adding. You can add more students like that. You can add, this is just 2 students. As you like, you can add 5 students to test. Now the next thing is that let's say we want to get a student now. Let's say we want to get a student. Okay, student number is part of the argument here. So let's say this one is 970 MNS 970. Let's say that is the student number, and this one MNS 051. So this is what we have. Then so after that, let's say I want to get a Shegun record. I can just say list string student equals to student dot get let's say the student number is called number. So you can declare your student number, say string student string number equals to, which number are we testing? We are testing MNS 051. That's the student's number to test. So and you have this. Then next, after you have added that, then since we have the student or a record, anyhow you want to call it, then you can now call the print method. You can now say students dot print record, which is the student here. So this is testing. This is testing, and this is what to put in your main method. I hope that is clear now. All right, that's great. All right, so we will end it here for today. Let's meet again tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining. For those who are able to wait, I think tomorrow I'll put more lights. If your child is still there or not, we can provide the offline support to getting your tools ready to roll. All right, thanks and goodbye.